Okay. All glories to Mother Ratasha, all glories to Religion of Love, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the Supreme Lord. O Lord God, please help us live out these teachings and be an example of love in the world. Jai. So we're picking up where we left off in the book Love, which would be page, 68 in the PDF. So, recap, Mother Atasha was invited to speak at a place of pilgrimage, and while there, she saw wanton corruption and all sorts of nonsense and money-making going on in the name of religion, and she spoke out against all that corruption, and even spoke out against the falsehoods of all the pilgrims who were coming. And the people were amazed and honest, and asked her lots of questions, and she stayed many days and answered all the questions asked to her. And the people were in awe, saying, "Why has no one told us this before?" And they became curious, asking, "Who is she who comes among us?" Till one day a man was sent to find out. "Who are you?" he questioned her. "Some say you are a saint, some a prophet, or an angel. Others call you a devil come to destroy religion. You say, servant of the servants of God." And again he asked, persisting till she finally answered him, "Only God knows who I am." But they were not satisfied and continued to be curious. And there was so much gossip that at last she was forced to answer. And she answered in this way, "The servant of God is like lightning," and told this tale. There were two men out in the dark night when a storm came up, and both became lost and were trying to find their way back home. Now one man was wise, and one man was foolish, and each was wandering in the dark. Suddenly, lightning struck. The foolish man looked up fascinated at the lightning, but the wise man didn't look at the lightning, but at what the lightning was illuminating, and seeing the road, found his way back home. And so we too traveled on, giving the message of God's great love, and in love worked among the poorest of the poor, for they suffered greatly. And in our travels we came to the richest nation on earth, and there too, for all their wealth, the people were suffering, for there are many ways to suffer in this world. And she taught in their fine buildings, and in their houses of marble and silk, as she had taught in the fields, and under the trees beside the sacred river. And she said to them, "You are confused, because having obtained everything, still it is not enough. You are like the man who, sitting one day in the beauty and peace of heaven, happened to look down, and what he saw far below made him gasp in wonder. For below there appeared to be a fantastic party going on, with music and dancing, the most beautiful women and men, and everyone enjoying like nothing he had ever seen before. He hurriedly found the keeper of the gates of heaven, and demanded to know, 'What's that below?' The keeper explained that below was hell. 'I want to go,' said the man, much to the keeper's surprise. 'If that is what you truly desire, then it is my duty to take you.' And so they descended down and down and down. They went until they reached the very bottom of the universes, where to his horror the man saw that the people there were all experiencing different forms of the cruelest torture a man can suffer. And in horror he said to the keeper, 'What's this?' 'This is hell,' said the keeper. The man, now thoroughly confused, asked, 'Then what was that I saw?' The keeper thought for a moment, and then understanding, chuckled to himself and said, 'Oh, that was the advertising campaign.' And when the laughter which followed had died away, she told them, You too have believed in the advertising campaign, thinking you could enjoy separated from God, and so you are suffering a short eternity in hell. And a woman very vain and very rich complained, Suffering, suffering. Why is it that you must always speak of suffering? I, for one, am not suffering. And in answer she said, There are two kinds of people in the world who do not suffer. One is the fool, who has not the sense to understand that all who enter the material world must suffer the threefold miseries of life. Miseries caused by nature, miseries caused by others, and the miseries of our own bodies and minds. The other, who does not suffer, is the pure devotee of God, the saint, whose heart is so completely filled with love of God that he is liberated in life and already in the spiritual world, though he walks among us. And turning to the woman, she asked, And which one are you? But there was one who well understood, a woman of great material opulence, who having attained everything the world could offer, and knowing now that all the world was not enough, after hearing, followed, and in time asked for initiation, and on the day of initiation, gathering her friends and family about her, she told them, The measure of your love for me will be how much you will help me on the path I have chosen. And the spiritual master spoke, telling, Two births a man may have, one of the body and one of the spirit. From this day forward you need have no fear, for God will be beside you. Let me go back. Okay. Till one day a man was sent to find out, Who are you? He questioned her. Some say you are a saint, some a prophet or angel. I personally would agree with all those three. Others call you a devil come to destroy religion. You say, servant of the servants of God. And again he asked, persisting, till she finally answered him, Only God knows who I am. So here the spiritual master is not giving them the answer that they want, because they all want to know all the superficial knowledge related to bodily designations. Now, Mother Natasha, I heard many times when we get a public class or public lectures, she would start off by saying, please, no personal questions. No questions about her. And some people, they wouldn't like that, especially if there was a journalist in the audience, for example. They just want to know the scoop, who is this person, right? But the spiritual master is not just being coy or trying to be mysterious. There's a great lesson to be found in everything an enlightened devotee of God says. And there's a teaching in that. Because we are not these bodies, these temporary bodily forms that we find ourselves in, that we assign all these numerous material designations of I am American, I am Australian, I am Indian, I am black, I am white, I am man, I am woman, I am this, I am that. I am a Christian, I am an atheist, I am a right wing, I am a left wing. Such and such and such are all these designations that we ascribe to this body. And when the body is finished, all those designations go with the body. Likewise, there were no such designations before the soul came into this world, into a material form. So any of those outward designations, those bodily designations, they're all temporary. They're not who we really are, the soul within the body. So when they're asking the spiritual master, who are you? She's not giving them a material answer to satisfy their material desires. She's giving them pure spiritual truth. And she says, I am but a servant of the servants of God. Only God knows who I am. And it's true. In conditioned consciousness, covered over in the illusion, the ignorance of this material world, caught up in the mind, which is part of the body, one of the senses of the body, we have no clue who we really are. Our real form, our real spiritual consciousness, which is all covered over right now. Therefore, we don't experience the eternal, blissful, spiritual reality. All we experience is the temporary, the limited, the sufferings and joys and birth and death of this world. And we think the body to be the all in all, and therefore we make all of our goals in life satisfying the pleasures and senses of the body. But the spiritual master answers rightly that only God knows who I am. Rightly, God knows who we really all are, that we have forgotten. And she says she is a servant of the servants of God, very meek, very humble. Servant of the servants of God. She doesn't even say that she is a servant of God, that she is directly taking God's instructions and serving this world. Although, truly she was. Truly, a spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession, who is self-effulgent and without any material tinge of consciousness or desires, they definitely are living their life 100% in accord with the message of God. Therefore, she was really serving the Lord, because everything that the Master did was only for the pleasure of God, not for the pleasure of her own senses. And you can think of a crude example. Say someone who's a very good servant, like a butler living in the house of the master, right? Everything the good servant does, the lowly, meek, humble, gentle servant, is only to please the good master. Whatever you want, sir, as you wish, sir, jump, how high, sir? Just think Alfred ready to serve Batman at a moment's notice, right? The good servant isn't thinking what's best for me. He's thinking what is best for my master. What is most pleasing to the Lord is the mindset, the desire of the devotee of God. And in humility, the spiritual master is not saying she is a direct servant of God. She is but a servant of God's servants, serving those great saints, those great acharyas, the spiritual masters who've come before, serving them, who they are serving God, which is non-different. When you serve a servant of God and you aid them in their mission, which is fulfilling God's will, it's non-different than serving the Lord. But that love is more compounded. It's very lovely. But they were not satisfied and continued to be curious. Oh, I heard something. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great. And there was so much gossip that at last she was forced to answer. And she answered in this way: the servant of God is like lightning, and told this tale. I'll just read it fast because you heard it just now. There were two men out in the dark when a storm came up, and both became lost and were trying to find their way back home. Now one man was wise and one man was foolish, and each was wandering in the dark. Kind of like us, wandering in the darkness of illusion, this material world, not really knowing where we came from, where we're going, what is our purpose here. We're all kind of wandering in the darkness of ignorance. Suddenly lightning struck. The foolish man looked up, fascinated at the lightning. But the wise man didn't look at the lightning, but at what the lightning was illuminating, and seeing the road, found his way back home. So the spiritual master is like that lightning. The spiritual master, one whose consciousness is purified, who is illumined with God's knowledge, in God's loving service, or in the loving service of the servants of God. You're like a lamp that is lit, and that lamp shines light on all around. But a lamp's purpose isn't for you to just look at the lamp, oh, nice light, maybe in Vegas. But a lamp's real purpose is to shine light in all the room so you can see everything around you. And that is the purpose of a spiritual master. The spiritual master doesn't come to be served, to be propped up on a pedestal, to be, oh, look at me, I'm so great. You know, people would say, perhaps, Mother Atasha never answering personal questions was part of her humility. She didn't want to talk about herself, and rightly she never did. She avoided all tabloid journalists. She avoided all people wanting to write biographies about her. She turned down an offer. Someone said, I could get you on Oprah. She said, I got nothing to do with that. Unless you want to hear the message of God, no thanks. But really, the reason she didn't answer personal questions is because it was out of her great humility and her service to others. It was out of compassion. She would say, my time is so limited and short with all of you. I didn't come here to make it about me. I came here for you. And verily, how will the knowledge of someone's background, who they are, what their favorite color is, how is that going to help any of us get closer to God and fulfill the purpose of life, spiritual realization? So the spiritual master is there to answer your questions, to give transcendental knowledge by which you can see the way home. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't want any images made of him. And why was that? Because he saw what happened to the prophet, messenger of God, who came before him, Lord Jesus Christ. Jesus, what happened? Gave the pure message of God, gave the light unto the world by which we could all see the path back home to God, how to live in love, how to reawaken our own original divine consciousness by purifying the dirt, the contamination of this mundane material bodily conception of life. But what happened? This man takes the message, makes a big organization of it, makes it a big thing about us and them and this and that. And soon enough, the symbols of religion become the all in all. And everyone looks at Jesus, for example, in Christianity, as this, the great symbol. And you see the cross everywhere, the crucifix everywhere. And everyone's fixated on these types of symbologies, and of who he was. And they argue so much about who Jesus was. Some say he was a prophet. Some say messenger of God. Some say he was God. So some say Messiah, for example. But in all of that arguing, of all of that debating on the surface, they neglect to actually follow the message that he gave. So Muhammad, he didn't want to have anybody fixating on him. He wanted all of the consciousness and all of the attention to be on the message and actually walking the path back to God. Focus on the message, not the messenger. Although we revere, honor, and love all the messengers of God, of course, we revere them, we honor them, we offer prayers unto them, we ask for their help and guidance. But the real help we get from all these messengers is the instructions they gave, and only if we actually do follow those instructions. Continuing. And so we too traveled on, giving the message of God's great love, and in love worked among the poorest of the poor, for they suffered greatly. And in our travels we came to the richest nation on earth, and there too, for all their wealth, the people were suffering. For there are many ways to suffer in this world. It was some years ago, but I'm sure it still applies. There was a Gallup poll, and if you know Gallup, it's a big thing in the West. I think it's based in England. They do all these polls, and they came to the conclusion in their study of what was the happiest country on earth, and then indexed everyone's happiness from this country to that country. They realized that the happiest countries weren't the richest countries, but were often poor countries, which goes to show that material opulence, money, is no guarantee for happiness. Verily, all those material things are just temporary anyways. For there are many ways to suffer in this world. And she taught in their fine buildings and in their houses of marble and silk, as she had taught in the fields and under the trees beside the sacred river. So that's another quality of a spiritual master, a pure devotee of God, is they are unchanging in any situation. Whether they are in opulence or in poverty, you see them act and speak in the same manner. And she said to them, "You are confused because, having obtained everything, still it is not enough." Material desires are insatiable. They're not satisfied. They burn like fire. And what happens when you put fuel on the fire? The fire just keeps raging. And the more we keep trying to satisfy our material desires, the more we just are impelled for wanting more and more and more, because the joys we get are limited and temporary. They don't last. Perfect example is gaming. My bro is here from the game we used to play and how we used to grind all these levels and all these tech lines and whatnot. Grind. You know, always after the next ship, always after the next come up, the next level up. It's never enough. We always want more and more and more, because material desires are insatiable. They're never satisfying because the joys never last. And just look at all the billionaires that we're starting to see in this world. More and more billionaires who have more wealth than they could ever spend in 100 lifetimes. Yet still they're unsatisfied. Still they want more and more and more. This disease of greed is never satisfied. They think if I just got another yacht, or if I just had another zero to my bank account, then I'll be happy. But once you get that high, and then that lulls, then you want the next thing. And it never ends. The next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And then the story of the man sitting in heaven, and you guys heard this story before a lot, so I'm not going to tell it again, but he looks down and says, "Oh, what's that? It's hell, you know." And he goes down there, goes, "Oh, what is all that?" He's like, "Oh, that's the advertising campaign." So this is the advertising campaign that we have been taught, conditioned from birth, that if you get this partner, this lady, you get this house, you get this job, you get these things, these whatever, then you'll be happy. This is the advertising campaign, that we're going to be happy if we get all of these things, but it never is enough, and it never is satisfying, and we're never truly happy. Why? And when the laughter which followed had died down, she told them, "You too have believed in the advertising campaign, thinking you could enjoy separated from God, and so you are suffering a short eternity in hell." We can't truly be ultimately happy unless we are again in love with God. Because true happiness, true bliss, the nature of the soul isn't considered happiness or even bliss. It's described in the scriptures as ecstatically blissful. I mean, madly crazy in love bliss. You know, beyond any drug, beyond any high you could ever get, beyond any joy or pleasure you could experience in this world. Nothing like that even holds a candlelight to the enormous, billions of suns of light and joy that you get in the spiritual. And that is because in the spiritual world, where we're all really from, the nature of the soul is eternal, full of conscious knowledge, and ecstatically blissful. And our constitutional position is that of an eternal servant of the Lord. But as we said before in previous classes, not servant in a negative sense, like, oh, I'm so low, I'm so, servitude is considered a low thing in material understanding. But in the spiritual, it's the highest, because it's the high you get when you serve the beloved, someone you really love, someone you absolutely adore in your heart. If you're able to do something for them that makes them pleased, boy, aren't we pleased. And we get such great joy out of that. And that is the reciprocation of love in the spiritual world. And it's a reciprocation because God in the same is also reciprocating with all of us in kind. It's this beautiful love affair. And the reason why we don't experience that great love here is because we're not in our natural state of loving service in the spiritual. No, we're separated. We're like a fish out of water. The water being this pure spiritual consciousness. You put a fish out of water, take him out, you give him tons of money, you make the fish the president of the country, you give him tons of female fishes. Will the fish ever be happy out of the water? He'd be like, oh, okay, but he'll still be suffocating and still be suffering. And a woman very vain and very rich complains, suffering, suffering. Why is it that you must always speak of suffering? I, for one, am not suffering. And she says there's two kinds of people in the world who don't suffer. One is the fool, who has not the sense to understand that all who enter the material world must suffer the threefold miseries of life. Miseries caused by nature, miseries caused by others, and the miseries of our own bodies and minds. And we know, we can understand these. Miseries by nature, so hot, it's so cold, or mosquitoes, earthquakes. Miseries caused by others, people cheating, people lying, people causing war, making you do too much paperwork, or miseries caused by our own bodies and minds. Now we know bodies. Every body in this material world experiences birth, death, old age, and disease. Nobody, no matter how rich you are, can escape these sufferings of the body and the sufferings of the mind. And verily that Gallup poll that was measuring what is the index of happiness in these different worlds and comparing to their GDPs, well, mainly what they were focusing on was mental illnesses, depression, anxiety, bipolar, sadness, divorce rates, things like this. All these problems of the mind. As I said before, there are many ways to suffer in this world. And the other who does not suffer is the pure devotee of God, the saint, whose heart is so completely filled with love of God that he is liberated in life and already in the spiritual world. Liberated, meaning he has no false conception of the body as the self. He knows who he really is. He's a spirit soul, eternal beloved lover, servant of God. He's liberated from all material attachments, all material desires. He's not seeking that which is temporary, but only living in the now and seeking what is eternal, the pleasure of God. Though he walks among us, so even in this life, so you don't have to wait until you die in this body and then go to the spiritual world to experience our natural state of bliss and knowledge, that state of love. That can be right now in the body. And this is what the process of spiritual realization is. This is what sainthood is. A saint is basically someone who's done the work, who's done the spiritual grind, who's purified their heart and mind of all this material false things, all this ignorance, and they've just awakened to their natural state, state of love. That's what a saint is. Everybody is a saint. Everybody on this call, everybody in this world is a saint, is a pure lover of God. Just unrealized. That's the purifying practices, spiritual practices of religion, hearing, chanting, remembering, all these things. These are what purify us and bring us back to that natural state. Clear away all the covering. Like gold buried in a mountain of dirt. You don't have to change the gold into something else. The gold is already pure, beautiful, and valuable. All you need to do is uncover it for that gold to shine. And turning to the woman, she asks, "And which one are you?" I think we know which one she was. But there was one who well understood, a woman of great material opulence, who, having attained everything the world could offer, and knowing now that all the world was not enough, insatiable desires burn like fire. It's never enough. After hearing, followed, and in time asked for initiation. And on the day of initiation, which means initiation of spiritual life, accepting a spiritual master, gathering her friends and family about her, she told them, "The measure of your love for me will be how much you will help me on the path I have chosen." This is real love. This is your real well-wishers. You see, love is of the eternal, ecstatic, spiritual. It's not of this world. Love cannot be separated from God. God is love. And we are all love because we are all part of God. We are all eternal servants of God. So real love is of the spiritual. So if you really love somebody, it means you want them to be free from suffering. You want them to be again with God and in love. This is real love. This is the real well-wisher. It says, the measure of your love for me will be how much you will help me on the path I have chosen, this path made straight. And the spiritual master spoke, telling, 2 births a man may have, one of the body and one of the spirit. From this day forward you need have no fear, for God will be beside you. So spiritual initiation is like your spiritual birth, and we've covered this in previous classes, and looks like we run out of time for the class portion. So let me pause it real quick. Pause. Okay. So does anyone have any questions related to the class?
Yeah, not questions, but I like the idea of, her not talking about herself, because that would almost make her sound like she's bragging a little bit, so she's very humble.
Yes. Humility is one of the qualities of a devotee of God. And they know that if any great accomplishment they may achieve in this life, they know that that's all by God's mercy. I didn't do that, It says in the scriptures that God is the ability in man. He is the intelligence in man. So the devotee of God knows this very well and knows that I can't do anything if it's not by God's blessing, by God's mercy. And therefore the devotee doesn't have any type of false, puffed up notion that I am the doer, I'm so great, I'm so such and such. No. When you see this arrogance, this pride, that's material consciousness, which is rooted in the bodily material conception of life. In material life, we're always trying to improve the person we appear to be. It's in spiritual life we become the person we really are. And what do we see in material life? I think I was discussing this with some of y'all the other day. You go to someone's LinkedIn account, or go to their profile, and you say, I am this. I have this many achievements. I have this many degrees. I have this many positions. Always trying to puff themselves up as high as possible. And rightly so. Why are they doing that? Because they want to get more prestige in this material world. They want to maybe acquire more, wealth through getting a higher position. By look how great I am. Don't you want to hire me? Give me a big promotion. This is all material. It's all worldly consciousness. But in spiritual life, we become the person we really are. And one of these qualities, in fact, I don't have them handy, but there's 26 qualities of a devotee of God, a pure devotee. You can read it in the scriptures. Humility, gentleness, kindness, compassion, gravity, simplicity, nonviolence, all these wonderful qualities of a pure devotee. Qualities not often found in our religious leaders of today, unfortunately.
That's true.
Anyone have a question? And thanks for sharing that, brother.
Yes, sir. It's been a little late. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go on.
I was going to ask a question about suffering. Recently I've been seeing more suffering everywhere. As this cat came by my room every night, and it's just, I hear it yelling, and it seems like it just wants food or something's going on, and so I leave it out food, and I just kind of think about suffering. And a lot of things are suffering around us, and when I see it directly, it kind of brings me a lot of pain. And I feel like it's kind of like one of my duties to try and help someone who's suffering when I see it in front of me. And so is that kind of related to spiritual life? And one of our duties is being kind of an example of helping each other out and reducing suffering where we do have it, kind of in a devotional service kind of manner.
Oh, well, bless your heart, brother. And yes, you're absolutely right. As Mother Tasha says, in the books, care for the body which is temporary and the soul which is eternal. You care for both. And we just read in the book, she said, and then we traveled in the world serving the poorest of the poor. So Mother Natasha, too, had great compassion on the suffering of others, and she gave as much help as she could. Of course, we had very, very little money. We're not doctors, but we would try to get doctors to people. We tried to give food. We tried to give aid and support where it's needed, because suffering is so great in this world. It's really great, the suffering. And the devotee of God has compassion, has empathy for the suffering of others, and it distresses and disturbs a devotee of God, and anyone who's connected with their heart, anyone who has compassion and her heart's more open, definitely is touched when they see others suffering. It moves them, and they want to help. That's why when they would play those advertisements of those nonprofits back in the day, show all the poor people and say, you can give a help too for these people. they're trying to appeal to people's compassionate nature, which everyone has within their heart. And the less covered your heart is, less covered in ignorance your consciousness, the more you're in tune with the heart, the more compassion you have, the more empathy you have. And we want to give help. It also says in the book, the devotee of God isn't just not a cause of suffering to others, but is also meant to be a cure for suffering. You want to help end the suffering of others. Now, we give material help, food, medicine, maybe a little cash, someone needs it. And that's good. That giving selflessly of yourself opens your heart more. And it also opens the heart more of the one receiving that material temporary help. But it's temporary help because, it only helps someone for that time. Because this world, you get a meal today and you're satisfied in your belly. Well, tomorrow it's going to be empty again. You help someone heal the disease, the sickness they have now, give them the medicine, give them treatment. Well, time will pass and there'll be another disease, another ailment that will befall pretty much everybody. So we care for the body which is temporary and the soul which is eternal. And the greatest help, the greatest love, is to free someone from suffering altogether. And the reason why we suffer is because we're in this world. And this world is a place of suffering. It's considered the prison house of birth and death. It is a place of suffering. And like that laser, suffering, always saying suffering. But the reason why it's a place of suffering is because everything is limited and temporary. Nothing lasts. These bodies sure don't last. We fear death. We fear loss. We sure grieve for those we care for when their bodies extinguish. People who've died, our loved ones. There's such great suffering in this world. Birth and death. This is a very evil thing. Anyone who's experienced the death of a dear loved one can relate to this, how evil death is, how heart-wrenching it is. And it's not natural to us, because we're not these bodies. We're spirit souls. The spirit soul never dies. There's no death in the spiritual world, only in this world. So the greatest love, the greatest help you can give to anybody is to help them be free from this world and go home, back to the spiritual. And that is what every single messenger, every single prophet that has come before, every religion, that has been what they've tried to do. Try to help everyone get back home to God. Back to the spiritual. Back home. So, we care for the body which is temporary and the soul which is eternal. And the way we give that spiritual help, as you said, of course, being the example of God's love, being the example of the message, is the greatest help you can give. And of course, giving spiritual knowledge, of course. Remember, knowledge is that light. Knowledge is that light in the darkness, that you can find the way back home, like that strike of lightning in the sky, which shows you the path. So you're no longer wandering in darkness. Or as Mother Atasha said, she said a spiritual master is just someone who just flips on the light switch. They don't help you navigate through the path. They just turn on the lights for you, so now you can find the way, and now you can do it yourself. Help you to help yourself. And the devotee of God gives these tools to others so that they can help themselves become again self-realized, become again the devotee of God, remember, reawaken who they really are, the servant of the servants of God. And of course, being that example is, like I said before, the example of the lamp that is lit. The purpose of the lamp is not just so that you say, oh, what a nice bright lamp. No, it's to shine and all around, and you become an inspiring example for others. People need to see the message of God lived out. They need to be inspired. We're hungry for inspiration. Where are our role models in this world? Where are our great, wonderful, selfless leaders, who had so much care and compassion for others? Where are those leaders? We don't have any of those nowadays. We have very, very poor role models these days. So, being again the lover of God, living again this message, filling your heart with love of God through these practices, by walking this path, you are like that lamp that is lit, and others will be inspired by that love, by that example that you set. Because who you are screams so loud. Like there's an Oscar Wilde saying, who you are is so loud I can hardly hear what you say. Be that example. And honestly, people don't care what you say, honestly. They look at who you are, what your actions are, what you actually do, what you're really all about. And that's what's really inspiring. Someone can say all the right words, but they're not really inspiring. There's no potency behind it unless they actually live them out, unless they actually are that open heart, that loving example of God's message. So I hope that helps, brother.
Yeah, follow-up question, if that's all right.
Always.
I was also wondering, it was mentioned that when you're like a pure devotee, you do not suffer. What does that really entail? What does it mean to not suffer in that sense? Because if you get hit in the head with a hammer, you'll still feel it, right?
Yes, yes.
What does it mean to not suffer when you're a pure devotee of God?
Well, let me explain that. So, you're right, and as she said, all who enter this world must suffer those threefold miseries of life, and those miseries don't go away. As long as you're in the body, you're going to have to deal with the material issues that come with life in this body, in this world, like getting hit in the head with something, right? That doesn't go away. But when she says the pure devotee of God does not suffer, it means that none of that bothers him. They're not disturbed by it. Like if you throw a rock at someone's head and that person, like any person, like, hey, first of all, they'll be, ow, and then they'll be like, and then they'll be all angry and they want to throw a rock back at you or something, right? They're very much disturbed by it. In fact, even after that incident's passed and that gash in the head is healed, that person might still think about that person and, gosh, what an awful person who did that. How could they, and start still reliving that suffering. They're so bothered by it, But the pure devotee of God, someone who's not in that bodily conception of life, just sees everything that happens in life by God's mercy. Therefore, the rock that comes and hits that devotee in the head, he's just like, ow, that sucks. But he's not really going to be bothered by it. He's not going to be filled with hate for that guy. He's not going to be thinking about it all day and be filled with all of this upset. Because he's so filled with love of God, he's like, ow, that hurts, but he's still filled with bliss. he's fully conscious of God's love. And I'm not saying okay, I don't really talk about my experiences much, really, but I've experienced this a little bit myself. I'm no pure devotee, mind you. I'm just a meek little nobody, really. But I've experienced this myself when I've had the big issue with my headache. been years having this terrible headache that never went away ever since 5G became a thing. And I suffered greatly, but as I've been living out these instructions by my spiritual master from the scriptures, and walking the path made straight, and not giving up, keep going, inching, little by little, getting, closer and closer to my real self. I've been feeling so much more love, experiencing more love inside my heart. And I can tell you, years ago to now, now it's actually getting better, and again, mercy of God. But even before it started getting better, it didn't bother me so much. It's pain, it's awful, it's hurting, but inside, I was just experiencing so much love and joy. So it didn't really bother me. I was like, okay, whatever, it's just the body. Oh well, what can you do? So the problems of life, all these little things that have to do with the body, they don't go away, but they won't disturb one's consciousness if their consciousness has been totally purified of all material contamination. If their consciousness is nothing but the original state of love of God. So the body will still feel owies, but the heart is in absolute bliss. So it doesn't, who cares, devotee of God's like, whatever. I'm not worried about it. And the mindset of a devotee of God, these wonderful, pure devotees, they were the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. They prayed in this way. They realized that everything is happening, all the bad things that happen are surely due to my own misdeeds, things that I have done in the past, my own sinful reactions. Even being in this world is by our own mistakes, right? Being stuck here in this position right now. So they see that everything's happening to them is because of things they did. And they pray that this is also God's mercy. Because surely I deserve to suffer even more than what I'm suffering now, but God in His kindness, in His mercy, has taken some of the edge off and making it easier on me. Surely I deserve worse. So this, and in this consciousness, now the devotee who's experiencing the suffering is just feeling more love of God. He's just like, I should be enduring worse than this. And again, mindset, another, the example of, let's see, I was complaining, what's that say? I wish I was complaining I didn't have a car until I was complaining that I didn't have the car I wanted till I met a man who didn't have a car. And then that person complained until a friend who didn't have a bike, and there's something like that. I forget how the saying goes, but you get the idea. So that's the idea. When we're in our natural state of love, we're still going to have to deal with stuff in this world. Look what happened to Jesus Christ. Oh my God, the torturing and suffering they did to him. But even when he was on the cross, he was still praying for forgiveness for all the people who did all these things out of ignorance. Lord, forgive them; they know not what they do. So the body may suffer, but inside, the spirit soul never suffers. And verily, the soul doesn't suffer. The suffering we experience is always related to the mind and body. But the soul by nature doesn't suffer, for the soul is eternal. The soul is pure spirit. The soul is a lover of God. Hope that answers your question, brother.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, what's that? Okay, here, I need the timer, though. Okay, well, I'll keep track. My wife's getting cold. She wants to go inside and join on the VC instead of in person. She's not feeling too well. Let me keep track of that. Why don't you just tell me when this timer runs out? Or when it's 1 minute left. How about that? No, it's 11 minutes, but when it says 1 minute, give me like the 1 minute warning. Does anyone else have any question? Oh, you're going to have to, I put it on deafen all noises, so you're going to have to turn it on again so you can hear. She's got muted mic and headphone. Maybe she'll figure. Your headset's, your audio's muted, love. Oh, she'll figure. There you go. You figured it out. Okay. No more questions or comments.
Not at the moment.
Okay. Well, what do you say maybe we finish the book? Why not? Let's finish the book. Alright, how do I open this? Okay. Oh, I'm going to have to... Here, go a little bit to the side. Hold on, let me do something. Do. Switch gears here. Oh, no. Doing this all with touchscreen. Hold on a second. Alright. So if you guys are still following the screen share. So two births a man may have, one of the body, one of the spirit. From this day forward you need have no fear, for God will be beside you. And she told of a man who, becoming a devotee of God, was also promised that from now on God would always walk beside him. And at the end of his life, when the devotee died, he was able to look back on a long life of service. And looking back, he saw his footprints as he had walked through life. And he saw also another set of footprints beside his, and knew that these were God's. But then he noticed that at certain times there would be only one set of footprints, and he remembered these times as being the most difficult in his life. So he rushed to find God to ask for an explanation. I was promised, he said to God when he found him, that when I became your devotee, that you would always be beside me. Yet looking back, I see only one set of footprints, and those at the most difficult times. Why is that? And the Lord, looking at his devotee with love, smiled and said, You see only one set of footprints at the most difficult times, because that was when I was carrying you. The first eye camp I ever went and volunteered in Bangladesh in 2006, Mother Tasha told me, when we take one step to God, He takes 1,000 steps towards us. God wants nothing more than for us to be happy again, and eternally happy, and He knows that. We'll only be happy when that fish gets back in the water, when we're back with Him. And God is a person. If love was personified, was a person, that is God. Pure love, the greatest among us, where God is so awesome, so loving, such the greatest friend and well-wisher, that just to see Him, just to be around Him, just to think about Him fills the devotee with so much ecstasy. Because God is so awesome, He's unparalleled. He really is. Imagine, He really is the best friend to everybody. He is the witness, the well-wisher who comes with us in every single lifetime, seated within the heart. He never leaves our heart. In fact, we're never actually alone. If we think we are alone in this world, well, that's just ignorance, because we just don't realize that God is there. He's always with us. He's right there in the core of our heart. We just don't see or realize it because our heart's so covered over. That's so beautiful. You see only one set of footprints at the most difficult times, because that when I was carrying you. And speaking to all who had gathered together in the garden, and for all who can hear, she said, The devotee of God is like a tree, whose roots are in the earth, but whose branches are in heaven, who like a tree tolerates heat and cold, stones and storm, and still not caring whether Hindu, Muslim, Christian or Jew, whether American or Indian, man or woman, rich or poor, black or white, whether friend or enemy, gives fruit to all. This, I say, is love. In this world, we have the opportunity in this human form of life to come to the highest state of love and to learn to love how God loves us. And that is what it means to be a pure devotee of God. A pure devotee, so pure, pure in heart, pure in mind, pure in consciousness, that you have unlimited, unabashed, unconditional love for everybody and everything. For you see nothing separate from God. For when we have love for God, we have love for all things created by God, for all creatures, for everything in this earth, for ourselves. We don't see anything separate from God, nothing that's not holy. So the devotee of God is like this tree. The tree doesn't care who's climbing its branches, who's picking at its fruit, who's shaking the tree and hitting the tree to get the fruit down. The tree doesn't fight back. The tree tolerates it and just gives love. This is the devotee of God. And this was the way in which Mother Vitasha, my spiritual master, lived. She was a living example of this. And that's why I've been so inspired to be on this path, because I was in the presence and witnessed such a pure devotee like that, who actually did live in such a manner, so tolerant like a tree, tolerated all these, abusive words and slanders, tolerated hardships, tolerated so many austerities. She was funny, she served among the poorest and the poor, and she's like, hepatitis, bronchitis, this, that. She's like, I've been there, I had it, I've had it, don't worry. She endured so much to serve the poorest of the poor. She never cared what happened to her own body. She just gave love unconditionally. And she didn't care who came to her. She treated everyone equally. So the devotee of God is the friend to all. They see everyone as the beloved lover of God, and so they respect everyone equally. They don't turn anybody away, rich or poor, black or woman, this religion, that religion, this nation, that nation. Everyone's a beloved servant, lover of God, and everyone's deserving of this message, this love. And therefore the devotee tries to serve all, as God serves all. Okay. Any last questions or comments before my wife comes back with the buzzer warning? Well, then I guess we can end there. It's pitch black behind me now in the and the webcam. I can see. What's that?
I can see it's black. It makes you look better, more holy.
Oh, God forbid. I'll end in a joke. Mother Vitasha, always keeping things real. Remember, it says here, whose branches are in heaven, but whose roots are in the earth. So she said, have your head in the clouds, but your feet on the ground. Keep it real. Be practical, always practical. And always humble, Mother Vitasha was. So one person, I'll end here. It was a public program in the West, and she was given this class, and it was question answer time. And this one lady, she was pretty woo-woo, woo-woo. She said, Mother, your aura is so bright. There's so much light coming from you. And Mother Vitasha says, oh, well, I guess I can save on my electric bill. Oh, she was so down to earth, always pegging it down. People would say, oh, you healed me. It was a miracle. You did this, you did that, and she would say, that wasn't me. That was just God. I didn't do anything. There was this woman. She had a car wreck, and she went to the ICU and she died, but heart stopped. But then she came back, and then she was in the room and she saw Mother Vitasha was there visiting her in the ICU, and then but Mother Vitasha wasn't there. Obviously, she was somewhere else. And then she told Mother Vitasha, it was a miracle. I believe you saved me. If it wasn't for you, and this was like another city away. but somehow she knew about her, and this news traveled to her. And Mother Tasha said, "That wasn't me. That was just God. That wasn't me. It just looked like me. I don't know." Always humble, always practical. So I'll end there. So, all glorious Mother Natasha, all glorious religion of love, all glories to the assembled devotees. Jai.